Hello everyone, welcome back to building a podcast app with Django. It's been a few days since I recorded an episode, but I have actually managed to do some stuff offline and make some progress. So since the last episode, I did actually get the infinite list loading working here. Let me prove it on a longer podcast. So this is like paginated, but it will continue to scroll continuously and load the next kind of block of 100, and it's doing this both on the podcast detail page and the episode page here as well. You can see I've actually redesigned these views completely. It's all sharing the same underlying template, but now you can kind of click through to the podcast itself. And yeah, if you have JavaScript disabled, so go settings, disable JavaScript, you can see there is actually a proper pagination here for people that don't have JavaScript. But if you do have JavaScript, this will be hidden, and you get the kind of infinite list, which is just this HTMX. Let's go HTMX examples. Can't type. Where are we? Is this lazy loading, or is it? Infinite scroll, this is the one, yeah. So it's basically just this. And how does that work? Well, if I go into my views here, we can have a look at the podcast detail view. You can see here if it's a vanilla non-HTMX request. So if I'm on this page here and I just refresh the browser and we go to the server and generate the template, then this is just going to render the podcast detail. The podcast detail, really can't type, podcast detail is just a very thin wrapper around podcast detail. It's just a very thin wrapper around this podcast detail partial. So what's podcast detail partial? If you're HTMX and you're navigating to this page from an external page, so if you're on this page here and you click on this link, if you have JavaScript enabled, is going to be like progressively enhanced by HTMX. So when you click on this, HTMX is going to hit this view here. It's going to go into here and it's going to load this podcast detail partial, and it's just going to replace the page element basically with what's inside this. So it's swapping the contents of everything inside this nav bar, which makes it much faster to load because we're not going back to the server to render basically the entire template. And then how does the infinite list work? Well, if you're scrolling here, then the referrer is going to be equal to the current path that you're on. And in that case, then we're going to load this podcast episode list partial, which is like a subset of a subset of a template. So it's even smaller of a piece here with the current page object that we're on. So we look inside here and say the episode list item partial. Each of this is just like a list of things, and if you are the last element, so if we're the last element here and there's still pages to get, then we can trigger a new request via HTMX once this has been revealed and add the new element, so add the new list element after our current here. So yeah, that's essentially how I managed to get it working. It was a bit of a struggle, but I'm pretty pleased with the result, and it does mean I can actually have everything all in the same view with this referrer. And I do have kind of similar code here to get that working for the episode list view, which backs the favorite and the listening view. So yeah, that's a bit about lazy loading and progress since last video. But the main kind of aim for today's video is actually to update some podcasts. The kind of observant amongst you will have realized that we've not actually touched on this yet. And if I look at like a Talk Python and look at the latest episodes, the latest episode is 216 and 215, and we only have 2 215. So I would like the ability to update a podcast. Maybe we can have like a button in the admin inside here where you can select and maybe update certain podcasts, or maybe bulk update all the podcasts, or a button here that just says update. But let's first kind of think about conceptually how we could do that. And to do that, I think I'm gonna just play around in the terminal until I get enough code. So let's import URL lib3 and get the feed link. Ooh, I didn't want to open that, I wanted just to copy it. And we can say the URL is going to be this, and we can say we can fetch the feed. So once we have the feed, everything's going to be available in the data. And we had this library called XML to dict, and we can pass things from the data like this. So this is going to be the entire podcast. We can get all the different items here, and each item is going to have this unique GUID. And we did actually have utilities to pass the podcast, so we can call pass podcast on this response data and just get back all of the episodes. So we can see here that the latest episode at the head of the list is going to be this. Although it does look like the order here has been reversed, so perhaps this will be the most recent. Is that correct? This ordering has gone a bit funky. So this is episode 0. This is episode 1. Yet in our kind of XML pass here, this title is very different. Let's have a look at the last item here. That's interesting. Because I'd accidentally looked at Python bytes, not talk Python to me. So let me look at talk Python to me. And then this will make more sense. So the latest episode should be and then we can say past episodes response is going to be this, and then we can say past episodes is going to be this. Okay, so now the first episode that we have should be like the latest available one. Yeah, so it's 416. The next episode should be 415. But I think we already have some of those episodes, so to get those episodes we can just call this and look at all the titles that we have. So you can see the latest title that we have is 415, but it might actually be easier to use GUIDs here and just convert this all to a set and say something like, these are the GUIDs I have available, and then you can say something like, is the past episode 0 GUID in our GUIDs, and that's going to be 416. If we look here, episode 416. But if we look at episode number 2, which is episode 415, then chances are that I think this is going to be in GUIDs, and at which point we know, because these feeds are kind of like append only, that we can stop looking in past episodes, and we can just return from whatever function is ingesting this information. So I think maybe we can just go into parser here. Let me just close everything on this side, and we can just have a function that just says like update podcast, and you can just pass in the URL of the podcast potentially that you want to update. So here we can say this is going to be URL lib3 dot, what do we call it, request. Can make a get request for the URL. In fact, let's pass in the podcast, because in the future we might need to do things like check the TTL and like last modified and headers and stuff like that, but we're not going to worry about that for the time being. So then we can say, what can we say? We said past episodes is going to be this. So we can say, can I copy? Yep, like that. So let's say if I have podcast.objects.get feed URL equals URL. It's feed link, isn't it? Feed link. Then I can get all the episodes like this. Can I? I can get the episode set. Come on. Dot all. What about values? Then I can say GUID flat. That's true. Maybe values list. Yeah, okay, so that's how, given the current podcast, I can get it. Is that right? No, I want to say podcast equals the podcast get feed link. But then can I do podcast or episode set or values list GUID? Okay, so I can do this. So if you pass in the podcast to this function, then I can just do another query to say that these are going to be all the GUIDs. I'm going to convert this to a set. Just make this a bit bigger, and then we can say for episode in past episodes, if episode GUID is not in the GUIDs, then I guess we can do podcast episode set dot add and then an episode. So let's just see if that works. Let's say past episodes 0 here, and then podcast episode set dot add. Will this work? This is a dict, so we can do something like this. Dun, 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 dun. Podcast episode set dot add. Got unexpected keyword item target. Is this like a Django set add value related objects? Let's do dot add. Is it episode set dot add? Oh, you need to actually create an episode, so I think we'd have to do something like this. The episode isn't saved. You would have to save it first. How do we do this when we actually ingest the podcasts here? We call episode.save, and we actually make the episode and then link it to the podcast. So you know what, let's just do the same thing. I know this isn't going to be the most efficient, but who cares for the time being? So we're going to loop over each episode, and if the episode GUID is not in the GUIDs of our current podcast episode set, that means we haven't seen it before. We're going to kind of ingest that data and then just return the podcast itself. So we're feeling brave enough to give this a go. Let's give this a go. So let's say podcast or URL is going to be this. Our podcast is going to be this. And from podcasts, the parser, we're going to import update podcast, and then we're going to call update podcast on our podcast. Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, maybe we don't need URL lib in the actual parser, and we could have like a different file that does like ingest logic would be nice. Let's just try this again. URL podcast import update. URL is not defined. Of course it's not. It's podcast.url. Try again. We're going to say URL podcast update podcast update. Of course it doesn't have URL. It's feed link. We'll get there eventually. So we can say URL is this, podcast is this, import that, and then update the podcast. Past episode is not defined. That's because here we said episode is going to be this, so this needs to be past episode because we're reassigning episode here. So a bit buggy, but we'll get there. We say URL podcast equals import and then update the podcast. Here we go. Cannot access local variable episode. I really need to get like my proper LSP integration here, so it tells me that things aren't defined properly. Shambles, and then import update podcast, and then we get our podcast back. So we can say podcast equals that, and then we can say podcast episode set. Let's find episode number. Maybe we have to call all on it. And you can see here there's episode 416. So just to confirm that that is in there, we can refresh the admin, and there you go. Okay, so and there's the new GUID to keep track of whether or not we've seen it before. So we've got Talk Python to Me updating, which is one example. I want to look at another example here, which is stuff you should know. Now this is an absolutely monster podcast. This has so many episodes. I think there is potentially thousands in here. Let's have a look. This is the feed link here, so we can say this is going to be our URL. So we can say podcast objects. Yep. And then we can say podcast episode set count. Okay, so yeah, there is like 2,000 episodes. The problem with this is that this request is going to take a very long time. Just import. If we see how long this takes here, it's taken a couple seconds each time because there's just so much data in here. But there's a mechanism that we can actually use here to avoid parsing and ingesting so much data, which is by using this e tag here. So if we look at MDN for e tags, we can see here that if the client sends the value of a previous e tag with this if non-match header, the server can respond back with a 304 not modified. So what does that mean? So right now we get back, I don't know, is it status code or status? Yeah, we've got 200 and rest.body has, or the rest data has loads of stuff in. But if we were to cache this e tag value, this is essentially like a kind of hash of all the data. If we were to say that e tag equals this, and then we can say headers, we can say if non-match, bear with me, is going to be the value of the previous e tag. You can see that was much faster. If we look at the status code now, we did actually get back a 304, and the body is not going to have anything in it. So we can do with caching this value each time we fetch something, irrespective of whether we actually kind of updated stuff. So I guess we're going to have to make a change to our models to include like an e tag in here. So let's just make it like a model char field maybe, and then let's make a migration for that. In fact, let's put like e tag and TTL down here, because we might also need like a last modified, but I've not yet encountered something that uses that. So yeah, let's just say make migrations, if I can spell podcasts. Okay, so we need to make this an optional field. So this can be blank true. We want to store it as null true, and then it shouldn't complain. Okay, because it is optional. Not every server will respond with an e tag. So I think what we can do here now is in our if we go back to parser, we can say here if e tag is in headers, so say headers, and it is e tag, isn't it? Like capitalized like this. So you can say if e tag in rest headers podcast e tag equals rest headers dot e tag, or maybe we can say e tag is rest dot headers dot get. It's a bit cleaner, isn't it? E tag, and then if e tag is not none, this is going to be e tag, and then hopefully when we call update podcast it should cache the latest e tag for us. And then here we can say headers, let's just say headers here, and then say headers equals headers. We can say if podcast e tag, then headers, and I think what is it? It's if non-match is going to be equal to the e tag. So we can say headers if non-match is going to equal podcast.e tag, and then we're going to pass those headers in like that. And then we update the e tag if necessary. So let's see if this works. And to debug this, how about we just print the headers? So sending headers, and then I guess we can print new e tag, or let's just print rest headers here, print adding episode title, to add just some like debugging and see what's going on. So yeah, let's jump out of this and say again, this is our URL and our podcast is going to be this. Then can we import update podcast and call this on the podcast? Okay, so we didn't have an e tag to start with, which is correct, and it added 4 more episodes, and then we got back a new e tag. So if we look in stuff you should know now, in addition to how juries work, there should be 4 more episodes, and we should have an e tag. But I don't think we're showing that on the admin. So yeah. So there's 4 more episodes here. So let me just go into the admin, and in the podcast admin maybe we can show like important information like TTL and e tag. And then let's just refresh this, and we should see an e tag. Okay, we don't see an e tag. That's interesting. Why don't we see the updated e tag? Because we definitely got it back. Parser e tag is not non podcast. You know why? Because we need to say podcast dot save, and I know Django we can say save. We can pass update fields. Yeah, so we can only update like the field that is specifically changed. So maybe e tag here. So I think we can try this again without sending an e tag. So let's got you, URL is you, podcast is you, update podcast, and update the podcast. So we've not sent an e tag, but now we should have saved the e tag, one would hope. Yep, okay, so we have an e tag. So next time round I kind of expect to get what was it, a 304 not modified status. So when we get the response back, we can say if resp status equals 304, and then we can just return the podcast because nothing has changed, right? The data is going to be completely empty. It's going to be not modified because we sent the e tag. Say, let's just say nothing changed, and then let's just print resp.data. Just wondering if I had an instance of where I'd use the status codes before. Yeah, this HTTP status. I would like to use this instead. So we can say, instead of 304, because I'm not going to remember what that is, we can say from HTTP import HTTP status, and then what is it going to be? Not modified. Okay, so yeah, we can say instead of 304 HTTP status not modified. So let's see if this works. Now that we have an e tag, so we can say once again podcast it's you, podcast e tag is definitely existing. Now we can import update podcast, call you, and immediately it's returned. See how much faster this is compared to actually ingesting the episodes. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we have a mechanism now to update individual podcasts with a function. I think now maybe let's look at adding a button to the admin. Is that possible? Django add button to admin. How to add a custom button to the Django view page. I've definitely been here at some point in my life before. So here we have make unique. Is this what we want? Is unique. You can start by extending the change form to add a button. Do we really want to do this? Make unique. So where would you add this? You can start by extending the change form, and then you pass it a template. So inside our podcast admin, and then you'd check if make unique is in the form. Okay. Do we want to do this? Or do we just have a management task? Maybe let's just add a management task that updates everything instead. Django management task or management command. So you can call Django admin update all or something like that. Yeah, let's do this. This seems a bit better. Applications. So here they have the management app. Sorry, the polls app, and next to the models is management and then commands. So I guess inside podcast we want management and then commands and then we want to touch podcast management init and then commands init. And so here is a command. They have management commands close poll. So let's say update feeds maybe, and then let's just blindly copy paste and say let's refresh this. So now we can update feeds, and the handler is just going to do nothing, and it's not going to take any arguments. So let's just say updates all feeds, podcast models. We're going to import podcast, and then here we're just going to do just going to put hello world. So we do manage podcasts. What happens now? Do we have an update feeds? We do have an update feeds. Okay, cool. So now we can do like our query. We can say for podcast in podcast objects dot all. We're going to just call update podcast on the podcast, and we can say updated. Do you have to do like string escapes here? Yeah, so you have to say updated, and then this %. I've not done this kind of weird formatting for ages. Why do we have to do it this way? Why can't I just use an F string? Give me an F string or give me def. Let's try this. Let's say updated podcast, and let's see if this works. Update podcast is not defined. Yes. How about now? Okay, nice. This seems to be working pretty well. And we also have all of our logging here as well, so you can see we've added a few episodes here for Python Bytes and this other podcast. So yeah, that's worked quite nicely. So how can we sort of make this a bit more resilient? I think this is fine for now, but if you had like 100 podcasts, this might take forever. You potentially might want to add some kind of concurrency or parallelism to this and add some background tasks. So maybe let's have a look at doing this in Celery, and then we can periodically maybe like trigger a command or a management command. Again, I don't expect this to be a hugely popular or successful app. It's just like a playing around, seeing what I can build. So I think Celery would be nice if I could deploy this and just have every 24 hours, or I don't know, every hour it could check to update the podcasts. So yeah, let's look at Celery. But I've just considered that in our parser, before we actually make a request, we should probably check the TTL, and maybe we need to be recording when we last made a request in order to double check the TTL. So we could do like a last queried date potentially. This might be difficult, so I'll have to consider it in the future. Because when we pass each podcast here, I'm not sure if everyone's going to have them, but some podcasts, this has a TTL, and that means, you know, please don't pass me every hour, because I'm only going to update every hour. So if you're passing me every 10 minutes, you're potentially going to put strain upon the server unnecessarily, and they might actually, you know, IP block you or prevent you from crawling their feed. So we actually need to respect this and prevent you from calling update podcast too frequently, and to do that we can respect the TTL. So maybe we need like a kind of like a last build date here. We can have like a last requested date, and then if you've requested sooner than the TTL, so if it's been less than the TTL's time since you requested, then we should just not request at all. But I think let's do that in a separate episode, and maybe just look at like trying to get this done periodically in the background. I think would be a nice thing to have. So let's try and get things working with Celery here. So this says in your project. In fact, let's follow this first steps of Celery, and let's install it first. I mean, that would be a good start. So let's get requirements. Let's add Celery, and then I think we need to do pip compile. compile dev, and then if we look at our like requirements.txt now, there should be celery in here, and then if we do pip sync, it should install everything that we need. So now we do pip list, pip show, celery should be there. We should be able to do like we do manage shell. We should be able to. Didn't like that, did it? Let's go back into podcatcher. No much we need to do with tools. Oh, because I need to pip sync both of these. My bad. Dun, dun, dun. Always good to double check things work. Yep, camel. So now I should be able to do things like import celery. Cool, that works. What is next? Documentation. This says create a file, tasks, blah 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 blah. We don't care about this. We just care about Django. So yeah, actually we do need to go back, and we do need to plop one of these in our like a project celery next to our settings, I guess. So let's copy this, and let's say this is our podcasts. It's going to be podcatcher here, isn't it? So what have they got? They've got project, manage, and then they've got another sub-project with settings. Okay, so yeah, this is the root, isn't it? So we have manage, and then it's okay. So we need to add a file here. Let's just call this celery py. We open up the celery. We can lob you in there. Cannot format. Go away. Let's just make sure the file is written to. Cannot pass line 24. Oh. Get rid of that. Yeah, okay, cool. And then in here, inside our init file, so that'll be you, we can basically copy you, and okay, and then it's breaking down what is happening. So it's going to use project.settings. I think we need to actually change that. It's not going to be proj settings. It's going to be podcast or podcatcher. Podcatcher settings. And let's call this podcatcher here. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. So now we can define kind of shared tasks here. Okay, let's give this a go. Let's go podcasts, probably in the same place as like our views and everything. So we can say podcasts, add file, tasks, and just let's open up tasks. Let's just have the add task. And then this is how you can use Django celery results as a backend, that is what I want, because I don't want to use Redis or something else like that to actually say the results, or like RabbitMQ. And then add this to the installed apps. Okay, let's do that. But first, let's do pip sync. Not pip sync, pip compile dev requirements, pip sync both of them. Okay, so then let's just do pip show Django celery results. Okay, that's there. So then in our installed apps, site settings, which is now getting kind of ridiculously big, but hey ho, the more stuff inside here, the less stuff I have to write, and then we can do this as the documentation says. So okay, so that's going to create a bunch of tables for us. So if we look in our database now, look in tables, we now have all these Django celery results, so we can keep track of different tasks. So maybe we can actually use this to keep track of when we last requested stuff. That could be an idea here. Configure celery. Then we need to add all of these settings. We can also use these. Okay, so let's add you and add you, and then we can use Django celery B to do periodic tasks. That is also what we want. But let's just see if I can start the celery worker now. What will happen if I do this? So I say pod catcher. This is going to blow up. No more should name demo app. That makes sense, because I was just blindly copy and pasting. My K editor seems to be constantly not wanting to save, which is distressing to me. Let's try that again. Okay, so it's trying to connect to RabbitMQ, which is not what I want. So that's the broker. I want to use Django as the broker. Is it possible to use that as the broker? Celery broker, use Django. Install Redis. I don't want to have to install Redis. Can I not install install Redis as your celery broker? Can I not use Django as my celery broker these days? No, I don't think I can. Okay, so I've migrated. I do also want this in the future, so let me just let me install that as well. So let's say requirements.in Django celery B, and again pip compile, and then pip compile. One day I'll get this right. First time. Pip compile dev requirements. What? Pip compile. Oh, dev requirements not in, and then pip compile. Oh, pip sync. Okay, we'll get there. No, I currently don't have Redis installed, so this might be difficult. But I have written about how to do this kind of in the past, so shameless plug. What did I use here? Oh, I did use Redis. So here you can install celery with any Redis dependencies. So let's go with that. So here I can just do Redis. I'm just going to kill Kate and start again because it's will not comply. And I'm going to say run the server again. And let's just make sure that all the Redis dependencies were installed. So again, pip compile, and then pip compile dev, and then pip sync. Okay, so it has installed a bunch of Redis things. And then how did I configure my Redis broker here? Oh, I use Docker. That's not fun. Another option is to quickly spin up a free Redis instance. Let's do that. And then I can update my celery broker URL. And then when I when I release this video, I'll make sure to change this instance. Because I don't have Docker installed, I don't want to faff about with installing Redis. We're just going to use a remote one. Can I pick one close to me? I can. I can't pick read regions. Do I need one of these? Let's just say Django. Let's say podcatcher. database is being prepared for you. Now this is probably going to leak my secret. It's not, but I have to probably paste this into my thing anyway, which I'm just going to do YOLO. So I can say celery broker URL is, come on, copy, paste, and there's my password. Please don't steal my password. And let's give this a go then. So where were we? We were here. No such transport. Okay, that's interesting. Did I? Yeah, that's because reader CLI is not a transport. I just can't copy paste properly. Okay, it's not bombed out immediately. Search for neighbors is all alone, probably because there's only like one celery worker here. Okay, so what can I do? Here is an example. I think I actually we can do celery-a status. Okay, let's try that. I'm learning from my past self here, so I can say pod catcher. Okay, so it's pinged our node, and our node is doing okay. So now we can pop a celery shell. So we can say, lovely, the neighbors are hammering, and maybe we can call tasks from here. So we've spawned the shell, and we can see what tasks we've got registered. Do we have app available to us? We do, so we can see what tasks there are. So it said there's a debug task, and there's our shared add task, which is this thing, which is cool. So now we can say, do we have to import it? We can trigger debug task with this. Okay, so do I have podcasts? I don't. Do I have debug task? I do, so I can call the debug task and get a result back, which is fantastic. Triggering tasks. So this is, in this example, we're calling the square function. You'll need to restart celery. It should appear on the tasks. Yes. And then have I imported it? So maybe I have to import this add task. So from podcasts.tasks import add. Then I can do add.delay 1 and 2. Do I get a result back? And then I can say res.get, and I get 3. Okay, that is perfect. That's exactly what I needed. So now I can make like a shared task. Let's just call this update podcasts. And yeah, this is going to essentially do the same thing as our management command. Update feeds, which I should have called update podcasts, but hey ho. Is it possible to call a management command from code? So Django call management command programmatically. Here we go, Stack Overflow. Nice. Call command interactive true. Maybe it doesn't need to be interactive. Let's give this a go. So the command is going to just be update feeds, right? So maybe we can do this. So I think, unless this is automatically reloading, which I don't think it is, we'll have to kill celery, and we can go in here and we can say from podcast tasks import, what did I call it? I called it update podcasts. I can call update podcasts dot delay, which will spawn it asynchronously, which gives us a result kind of quickly. Sorry, it's not that, is it? Let's have a look in our admin and see Let's see what's up here. Task results. This was a failure. Why was it a failure? Result data. Here we go. Unknown options for update feed command. That's interesting. Why didn't it like my shared task of update feed here? This is a management command, right? Update feeds? Or do I have to... Let's just double check how we called it. It was update feeds like this, right? What's wrong with that? This programmatic calling of Django management is not what I expected. Call command, run server. Let's say, is it in here? Call command. Use call command instead. Call command. Interactive. Maybe just do interactive false. That's probably the source of our problems here. Update feed. Feeds. That's definitely what it is, right? Update feeds, plural. Alright, let's try this again. Let's just kill this. Let's pop a new shell. Let's import our task. And let's say the result of this is going to be this. And again we get interactive. Unknown options for update feeds command. Interactive. Is this because that is no longer like a valid thing? Do I have to pass? Oh, of course, like maybe this just isn't a valid thing for it. Here we go. 1 millionth time lucky. I'm really impressed with this Redis instance, so let's just refresh this. Can I actually just browse what's going on? Holy moly, I can. Okay, that's cool. It doesn't look like there's much there, just like to task queue. I don't know what I expected, to be honest. Let's pop shell. Let's import update podcasts. Let's call it. Let's get it. Oh man, this is promising because now we're like awaiting the result of the function, and if we go in here, we're actually printing all of the stuff that happened. So that is cool. So now we've got like celery tasks working, so I can do stuff asynchronously. Now I wanted this Django celery beat thing, which means I can like trigger stuff based on like an interval, like every 24 hours run this thing. Please don't tell me the docs are down. Come on. Say Django celery beat. Let's try a different route to get there. Okay, we got there. Models. Dun, 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 dun. I'm pretty sure I have to make a migration at some point. Do I not have to make a migration? So we've installed that. Okay, yes. So inside settings, installed apps, we have celery results. And now we just need celery beat. And now I believe I can do something like migrate. Oh, it's beautiful. And if I go in here now, I should have periodic tasks. So I go here and I say add periodic task. I can say update podcasts. I'm gonna update the podcasts, and I'm gonna add an interval, and I'm gonna say every day. And I can do this with like cron tab stuff, but I'm not gonna worry about that for now. In fact, let's not do every day. Let's debug it and say every minute. And it's not a one-off task. It's going to be like a permanent thing. And now we basically just wait and see if this gets triggered. So it looks like it succeeded in 5 seconds, which is fair enough. We're doing it every hour. It doesn't matter if it takes too long. We may want to like shard this out eventually, so different workers, we could run a bunch of workers and each worker picks up a task or a feed to fetch. Because imagine if you had 1,000 podcasts, it might start taking, more than an hour or more than 24 hours to fetch all the podcasts. Gosh, I think it's been probably more than a minute. Do I need to reboot? No, I don't. If I recall correctly, I need to run this celery beat service. Yeah, that's why it's not triggering anything, because the thing that actually triggers the tasks is like a separate process. So I've got my main app, I've got celery running. This is just like a debug shell where I can trigger tasks. But the missing piece of the puzzle here is this. It's a project. It's going to be Podcatcher, and the scheduler is just going to be this. I think I can do like shorthand for this. This can also be set using just an S. Let's just try this. Okay, come on. Starting. It's looking promising. It's not looking promising. Why is it taking so long? Come on. Oh, I don't know what this is. That's just been added. It's still starting. Sweet, let's kill it and just try it again. Beat is starting. Let's attach the Redis, upstash. Yep. Is there something I've missed? It's highly likely that I've missed something. Default scheduler. Blah blah blah. Django celery beat extension. Well, yeah, this is what I'm using, right? Still no progress there. Is there like a startup order, like an order of precedence? Do I need to start celery beat before I start celery itself? Let's try. So let's run the app, the celery beat, and then the worker itself. Weird. Celery beat not starting. I think there is actually a way to run this alongside the worker, so you can actually do it in the same thing. So can I do that? This is celery, just dash A, and you can do beat. Say celery, run beat worker, run beat and worker in one command. Mostly used for development purposes. Yes, that's what I want. So it needs to be basically this, and the scheduler still needs to be Django. So let's kill you and say celery A podcatcher. This is going to be Django. The beat process still seems to hang. Why is that? Celery beat is just not working at all. So should double check everything is as it seems here. Not sure what this is. Oh, do I need to enable you? Yeah, okay, so it's enabled every minute. Start. Now. Let's just try adding a one-off task. Let's just say add. This is a one-off task. save. Please one of. Okay, clocked schedule interval. So it still needs an interval. It's interesting. Let's just add that and see if that has been picked up at all. It hasn't been picked up. Celery beat. Here we go. Let's have a look. Is there anything obvious? Dun, 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 dun. Nope. Schedule. Should work. But I shouldn't have to define any of this. This is proper weird that this isn't working. Anything? No. Alright, well maybe this is something for me to debug offline, and then I think maybe I'll edit this in when I do figure out how on earth this works.
A few moments later.
Alright, it's Jack from the future, and I think I finally figured out what the problem was. So in my video, I was doing something like this earlier. This connects to Redis, and then celery beat just doesn't seem to do anything. It doesn't seem to trigger any tasks, even though in here I've configured, where are we, periodic tasks. Here I've configured this add to run every 5 seconds, right? But if we change this S shorthand to scheduler and observe what happens, we actually start getting tasks. So yeah, it literally just appeared to be the difference between this S value being there versus not being there, which is kind of strange because in the docs they do have it as S Django, but it looks like when you're using it with celery beat, so if you're using the celery beat you have to pass a special -- scheduler argument, or you can pass it here. So I think that is what I might do inside settings here, so I can go bam, and then I don't need this argument here at all. So it's going to be -L. Let's see if that works for us. Okay, yep, so it is getting tasks periodically, kind of every 5 seconds, and these tasks will actually be filling up the results here, so I can actually go ahead and just remove some of those. And because this is just like a debug task, I can go in here and I can disable this task for the time being, and I can go back in here. In fact, this is running every minute. Okay, it's fine, and let's just enable this, and let's painfully wait around for this to actually run and see if it's successful, and we should see some actual logs in here. Yep, okay, so it's fetching and updating those podcasts. Lovely doubly, succeeded in 5 seconds, and if we go to task results we can see here this is a success. So yeah, that was a bit annoying that it took so long to figure out and kind of stumped me as I was recording the video, but happy that I finally got it sorted. With all that in place now, we have tasks periodically updating. I need to figure out how to get this potentially deployed somewhere so that I can, you know, perhaps start using it, and then we can further flesh out some of the features. Obviously some of the big missing features is like keeping track of automatically what episodes are in progress, and being able to continue playback from where you left off. So if you start playing an episode, let's say if this loads,
if you're looking for
and you get halfway through, then if you pause it and navigate away, close the app and then open it again, it should kind of preload this for you as being kind of halfway. You shouldn't have to manually try and figure out where you were. So that's something to add in the future, and I think is kind of nearing completion, dare I say it. I think there's been about 30 odd episodes in this series, so hopefully I would like to close it off before it gets too ridiculously long. Anyway, I know this has been a long episode, so if you've enjoyed it, thank you very much for watching. Alright, bye bye.